I think it's time for President Trump to shake up the Department of Homeland Security. Kristi Noem has got to go. Kristi Noem handled this Alex Pretti shooting terribly over the weekend. She is the head of DHS. She has obviously become a face of the ICE operations in recent weeks and recent months all over the country, and it's time for her to go. Good morning, 604. Glad you're here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Hope you're digging out. If you haven't yet, it's -4 here at the studios, feeling like -9 degrees this morning, John.
Yeah, I understood it that we were going to Greenland rather than it coming here, apparently, right?
This is Greenland's revenge. That's what's going on right now across Kansas City. So over the weekend, you had this most recent tragic shooting involving Alex Pretti. And I'm sure many of you have watched the video over the weekend. If you haven't, you can find it for yourself and look at it on your own time. Alex Pretti was protesting ICE up in Minneapolis, and he ends up losing his life at the hands of Border Patrol agents. Now, I've watched the video multiple times, and what I see is chaos. What I see is a 37-year-old man who was in a bad situation, in the wrong place at the wrong time. But to be clear, this is not as black and white as the Renee Good situation is. It's just not. Was this guy being a knucklehead to law enforcement? Yes. Can you win stupid prizes when you play stupid games? Yes, you can. But what you see is about half a dozen Border Patrol agents surrounding this guy, trying to arrest him. And it looks like what happens is somebody yells gun, right? And as someone yells gun, one officer appears to take the gun that Alex Pretti had on him away from him. But if you're an officer and you're seeing a dozen hands, like just flying all over the place in that split moment, you don't know whose hand is on the gun. Is it Alex Pretti? Is it a Border Patrol agent? You don't know in that moment. So I'm sympathetic to that to some degree. But the reality is, when you watch that video, somebody disarms Alex Pretti, and then he gets shot and killed. And when you look at how this has unfolded over the last 48 hours, I mean, Kristi Noem has been all over the place talking to anybody and anybody who will listen, and I think she's done a terrible job doing it. I think that she has talked out of all sides of her mouth, and frankly, I don't think she's done this administration any favors. In fact, I think she's hurt their cause in large part. And you heard a lot of that, whether it was Saturday or whether it was again yesterday. I just kept, every time I saw Kristi Noem, the head of DHS, I just said, get her off TV, get the microphones out of her face. I don't want to hear from her anymore because she's not helping anything.
This individual impeded the law enforcement officers and attacked them. State the facts as they unfolded on the street today. We were doing a targeted operation against an illegal criminal, and this individual came with a weapon and dozens of rounds of ammunition and attacked them. And these agents took action to defend their lives and to defend the lives of the people around them, and acted according to their training. And we will continue to let this process go forward and not allow people like Governor Walz and Mayor Frey to lie about what actually unfolded on that street. Now they have deemed this situation an unlawful assembly, and these leaders aren't even cleaning up the situation that they have as far as the violent riots that we see unfolding in Minneapolis right now. They need to be strong, take action, protect their citizens, and partner with us.
Listen, Tim Walz and Jacob Frey are losers and punks. But when Kristi Noem says, hey, we're there to arrest an illegal criminal alien, and this guy brings a weapon and a bunch of rounds of ammunition and attacks him, I mean, first off, this is still America, right? I mean, Kristi Noem is now going to lead the way against American citizens legally carrying their guns. And I have yet to see any evidence that shows this individual attacked them in the way that she is describing there. Listen, I'm not defending what this guy's protesting. I am on board and agree with what the administration has been doing when it comes to a hyper-focus on criminal illegal aliens and removing them from the country. There's some data that I'll share with you shortly that puts a lot of what's happening in Minneapolis in the context when you actually look at the numbers and compare it to the rest of the country, including Kansas and Missouri. So I'll get to that here in a second. But Kristi Noem, I mean, to come out and say, well, this guy's packing heat and he's got a bunch of rounds of ammunition on him, so he was asking for it. No, that's not how this works. If the shoe was on the other foot, could you imagine the response this morning? Could you imagine the phone calls I could be taking this morning? Kristi Noem is way out of line, and frankly, she's way in over her head. She was never really, frankly, qualified for this position. She looks good on TV. That's about it. And she may have, and is still allegedly involved with Corey Lewandowski in some romantic way, and that may be part of the reason she got this gig to begin with. I don't know. All I know is that she is not the person who should be running DHS at the incredible tense moments that we are living through right now. And she proved it over the weekend. 913-408-7957. I'm waiting for others to jump on board with this because I thought that she had the worst weekend imaginable in the wake of Alex Pretti getting shot and killed in Minneapolis. Now, as for what's happening in Minneapolis and as for some of what you're seeing on the ground there, I want to give you some numbers that I think put a lot of this into context, right? Let's just stick with the facts with what we know. You have had more people detained by ICE in Florida, Texas, California, Georgia, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, New York, Arizona, than you have had detained in Minneapolis. You've had about 3,000 to 4,000 people detained by ICE in Minneapolis during the 2025. I'm looking at the data right now. 3,000 to 4,000 people, not a ton, right? I mean, all in all, it's not a large number of people. In California and Texas, you've had over 30,000 people detained by ICE. 10 times the number of people in Texas versus Minneapolis, or Minnesota, have been detained by ICE. In Kansas and Missouri, it's not much lower than it is in Minnesota. Think about that. Had about 3,000 people detained by ICE in Minnesota. Here in Kansas and Missouri, you've had between 1,000 and 2,000 people in both of our two states detained by ICE. Minneapolis, in particular, has made this a coordinated effort to push back against ICE, to push back against the administration. This is not because Minneapolis is some massive hotbed. It's because they've, in large part, taken it upon themselves to resist. And what you've seen is a very coordinated effort to resist. And that's partially driven by local law enforcement decisions. That's driven by the mayor. And yes, that's driven by the governor, Tim Walz. That's what's happened. And you have officials all over the country who are working with ICE and are not urging the public to resist. So two things are true here at the same time. The administration needs to be smarter in how they're going about this. That's number one. But number two, we've got to make sure we have all the right information. We have the facts as to who is actually being detained where, what these numbers are, and how Minneapolis, in many respects, is a blip on the radar compared to some of these other states and cities. And I get it. This is not an easy situation. Like, you can't just, if you're the administration, you can't just turn around and walk away. Well, we got some agitators and protesters, so I guess we're just going to go. You can't let rioters and agitators run off federal law enforcement officials from doing their jobs. You just can't do that. I mean, you had an ICE agent who's going to lose his finger because a rioter allegedly bit it off over the weekend. You had that happening as well. But you also have to make sure, knowing full well, you've got an entire media establishment against you. You've got half the country against you. You have got to make sure you are so buttoned up in what you're saying and how you're doing it. And that's not happening right now either. It's not. And they're losing the narrative. And by they, I mean the administration is losing the narrative. And it's because of people like Kristi Noem. 913-408-7957. I would put Tom Homan in charge of DHS tomorrow and be done with it and move on. Because she is way out over her skis. Speaking of skis, I was watching some X Games over the weekend. I stumbled upon that. The girls were loving it yesterday. We had a full-blown snow day. Outside in the snow, watching a little skiing on the X Games, getting ready for the Winter Olympics. My goodness. Yeah, we are basically in Greenland, aren't we? 913-408-7957. It's how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We are streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Great to have you here on a busy and frigid Monday morning across Kansas City. Now, coming up, we will get to you, your calls, your texts, your tweets, and also what your local representatives are saying all next. So here's what Sharice Davids and Emmanuel Cleaver, our local representatives, two of our local representatives, are saying in the wake of the latest shooting in Minnesota. This was of Alex Pretti over the weekend. All right, what do we have here? We've got Sharice Davids putting out in a statement over the weekend, I am angry and heartbroken about the killing of Alex Pretti, a VA nurse in Minnesota. People should feel safe in their own communities, but right now families are afraid to leave their homes and communities are living in fear. Our local law enforcement should be allowed to protect our neighborhoods, not masked, militarized federal agents operating with zero transparency. This should not be who we are as a country. One killing is too many, but after two fatal shootings in recent weeks, this administration must answer for what happened and take immediate, concrete action to stop the senseless killing of our neighbors. That is the statement from Sharice Davids. Now, I've been critical, and I just was, and I see the text line exploding on how Kristi Noem in particular has handled the fallout of this Alex Pretti shooting in Minnesota. I would fire her today if I was Donald Trump. And I would put Tom Homan in charge. That's what I would do. But Sharice Davids saying one killing is too many. Listen, I agree that the Alex Pretti shooting is not Renee Good. Renee Good's in a vehicle that is driving right into a law enforcement officer, and boom, a split-second decision is made. Alex Pretti was being a punk. There's no doubt about it. But what clearly happens on the video is the guy has his weapon removed from him, and then he ends up getting shot and killed. That's a much worse look than what happened with Renee Good, and much more questionable decision-making than what happened with Renee Good. But for Sharice Davids to come out and say, you know, one killing is too many, part of the reason we are in this situation is because of what happened the prior 4 years with a wide-open southern border. And what you saw with the wide-open southern border is people who were in the country illegally killing American citizens. Laken Riley comes to mind down in Georgia. I don't recall Sharice Davids coming out with some statement saying one killing is too many. I don't. I don't see that happening at all. So for Sharice Davids to pick and choose when one killing matters to her, I find awfully rich. I think you have to be honest and transparent and fair across the board on this stuff when you say one killing is too many. Sharice Davids did not do that. Emmanuel Cleaver put out a statement, my heart breaks for another family that must bear the horrific pain that comes with losing a loved one. How many more Americans must die at the hands of federal agents before Republicans in Congress will put an end to the administration's reckless, lawless, and dangerous immigration agenda? Emmanuel Cleaver, here in Kansas City, writes, it's beyond clear the administration and DHS officials are completely out of control, sowing chaos in our communities and endangering our fellow citizens. It's past time for Congress to rein them in before more tragedies occur. And the administration labels another citizen killed by federal agents as a terrorist before any investigation can occur. It's important that Congress and state officials conduct thorough and independent investigations to ensure accountability for this killing. That is from Emmanuel Cleaver yesterday afternoon. He says here, justice must be served. Very similar to Sharice Davids in the sense that, it seems like we pick and choose when we are offended by someone's death, when we are upset by someone's death. I think Laken Riley's a tragedy. I think Alex Pretti's a tragedy. I do. And I think there's less defense of federal law enforcement in this case than there is in the Renee Good case that happened a couple of weeks prior. But Emmanuel Cleaver and Sharice Davids put out super partisan statements, and that doesn't help anything because, yes, part of the blame lays at the feet of Jacob Fry and Tim Walz, who continue to foment this type of radicalism in their major city. That's what they are also doing in part, and the lack of cooperation is what is leading in part to this chaos. That's indisputable. That doesn't mean that how the situation with Alex Pretti was handled was correct or well done. There's no way. That's not the case at all. But still, those guys, there's a lot of blame to go around right now. John in Kansas City. What's up, John?
Did you see this video? We all seen the videos. Was it murder?
Was it murder?
Was it murder Saturday?
Well, I'm not on a jury. And as
you didn't see a murder? You didn't see a murder with your own eyes? Did you view it, Mondo?
Hey, John.
Did you view it?
John.
Did you view it?
I opened up the show telling you what I saw. And what I saw was a man who was getting potentially arrested by Border Patrol, who had his gun removed from his body and then was, yes, shot and killed in a moment of complete chaos and confusion. I have been, to start this show, in case you have not been listening, critical of how this was handled by law enforcement. Was it murder? I don't know right now. But am I critical of how this was handled by Border Patrol? Yes.
He was helping a woman, Mondo. He got pepper sprayed, beat to the ground. They took his gun out of his holster on his 6 o'clock and unloaded 11 rounds in him, Mondo.
Mm-hmm.
That's murder.
So what do you want to see come out of this?
Nazis in the streets, Mondo. Those are Nazis in the streets.
Now that's not true.
What does it look like?
That's the kind of rhetoric that's leading to this violence, John.
Could you imagine being out to breakfast on a Saturday morning? You come out of where you're at and you're filming something. You're trying to get people out of the way, out of the streets. Obviously what Andy was doing. Trying to get the woman back over there away from ICE because it's happening in their own streets. He got her away. ICE came over there and shoved the woman down. He's protecting the woman. The dudes beat the crap out of him, spraying with mace and put 11 rounds in him. That's murder, Mondo.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for the call. Listen, I'm not sitting here telling you that by the letter of the law, it's a great look. Okay? I started off the show saying that. I made that clear for a half hour. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's murder, though. I'm going to let the authorities figure that out, and I have not seen every angle of it. I'm just telling you what I've seen looks bad. Yes, I agree. But boy, there is a lot of nuance here on both sides that is also being missed. The Super Bowl is set. We've got the Seahawks and the Patriots. We're going to redo the Super Bowl from, 2015, I guess that was, just over a decade. So congratulations to our good friend, Mark Van Sickle, who has his Seahawks beanie on this morning as we sit here in negative degree weather. It is his, place of birth, right? That's where you were born, in Seattle.
Yep.
In the greater Seattle area. So it's your second favorite team after the Kansas City Chiefs. A distant second, but I know your second favorite team. And they're in the NFC, so no hatred there. Congratulations.
Exactly. When they moved from the AFC West to the NFC West, I really felt like I could start wearing Seahawks gear around town.
And you know what? They are going back to the big game coming up here in a couple of weeks. So did your parlay hit over the weekend or no?
Not the one that I did on the air. So nothing hit in that first game because it was such a terrible game. I had 25 yards receiving for 3 guys, and it didn't work. Or 4 guys.
Yeah. Well, that snow didn't help you in the second half.
Not at all. So I cooked up my own parlay basically in the second half of that first game when I knew that wasn't going to hit, and I actually hit 2 other ones. So
You did?
Didn't go too bad in the second half, or the second game at least. So.
I need to see the receipts, though, Mark.
I'll send it to you.
All right.
I'll send it to you.
I need to see the receipts, man. So you had the Patriots beating the Broncos 10-7 yesterday on the AFC side, and then the Seahawks beating the Rams 31-27. The girls kept saying, who are you rooting for? Who are you rooting for? And I said, we're going to root for, and I can't believe I said it, but I was pulling for the Patriots yesterday. I just think that Sean Payton is such a punk. And, the longer I've been here, it's just kind of getting into my blood. The Broncos are more and more annoying by the day, John.
I'm with you on the Patriots thing. I kind of got tired of them winning, but I did to satisfy myself with the fact that Vrabel played here a couple of years before he retired, and so I can kind of get behind the non-Belichick, non-Brady version.
That's a great point. Maybe that was part of it. Because I like Mike Vrabel. He got a raw deal in Tennessee. To think that the Titans fired this guy.
Right.
I mean, they fired this guy. And within a couple of years, he's got the Patriots in a Super Bowl. And Sean Payton, oh my goodness. I don't think there's a coach in the NFL right now I can't stand more than Sean Payton. And he's getting roasted because what? He didn't take that field goal, right?
How about that?
In the first half, he didn't take the points. And then they end up in Snowmageddon in the second half, which seemed to come out of nowhere. And suddenly you're trying to kick field goals in 30-mile-an-hour winds and, snow all over the place. That was a tough spot for the Broncos, who got off to a fast start. And after that, that was it. I mean, they didn't score a single point after their opening drive. So congratulations to the Patriots. I can't believe I just said it. My college roommate, he was a diehard Pats guy. So in college, which for me was 2006 to 2010, they must have won at least a Super Bowl or 2. But I also got to watch them lose to the Giants in that David Tyree catch on the helmet. I was in his house watching that game with him when David Tyree made that catch for the Giants. And I wasn't a Giants fan, but obviously I was rooting for him. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen to watch the Patriots go down like that, John.
There you go. Now, Lamar Hunt in the AFL, so it's always good to root for an original AFL franchise. That's another rooting interest here for the Patriots.
That's a good point. Now,
that kind of is a sentiment here in town sometimes.
We've gotten to the Super Bowl, though, so are we all going to say we're just Seahawks fans now? Because
I'm back, and I'm going with the Hawks.
You're going with the Hawks, too? Okay.
Yeah. So, I think they look better of the two teams yesterday, certainly.
I agree. So we're all on Mark's Seattle Seahawks bandwagon.
Woo!
All right. We'll see if Keatsman will join us when he comes in later in the morning. 913-408-7957 is the text line and the studio line here on KCMO Talk Radio. Now, speaking of football, I put this up on social media on Friday morning, and it's now been seen about 300,000 times between Facebook and X. So you may have seen the story last week, and if you haven't seen the story, the San Francisco 49ers just dealt with another injury-plagued season. So they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Is it the training staff? Is it the trainers? What's the deal here? They are looking at everything. ESPN reported last week that they also are going to investigate what is right now an online conspiracy theory that the electrical substation near their training facility and Levi Stadium is contributing to those injuries. This according to General Manager John Lynch last week. So they are doing it all. They're looking everywhere they possibly can to figure out why they have dealt with so many injuries in recent years. So the 49ers have trained in Santa Clara since the late 80s, with that substation coming in a few years later. The station is operated by Silicon Valley Power, expanded in 2014 in conjunction with the opening of Levi Stadium. The theory has been shot down by various scientists and medical professionals who have basically said the story's nonsense. Still, the 49ers' injury issues over the past decade or so are robust enough to take nothing off the table. This year, they lost Nick Bosa to an ACL, Fred Warner to a broken ankle, George Kittle to an Achilles injury. I mean, they have just been dealing with injuries more than any other team consistently in recent years. So this came to me Friday after I got off the air, and it's that the location that the Chiefs are looking at for their practice facility right there at basically K10 in Ridgeview. There is an Evergy substation, electrical substation, that is basically due west on the other side of the train tracks of the property that the Chiefs are looking at for their practice facility. Now, I'm more concerned about all the homes basically at College and Woodland that back up to this substation, if there is any truth to any of this stuff. But it was noted to me that, hey, this Evergy substation is right there. Now, is it as close as it is in California for the 49ers? No, it's not. And I'm not saying that's the reason you move there or don't move there. I just found it interesting. That's all it was. It wasn't me opining on the science. It wasn't me sitting here saying, oh, boy, you can't go there because everyone's going to tear an Achilles. I'm not saying that. I just found it interesting that days after, the 49ers admit, yeah, we're going to look at this electrical substation theory that's out there as to why our players might be getting injured. The location the Chiefs are picking also happens to back up to an electrical substation. Do with it what you want. I didn't throw it out there and say, yeah, you can't go there. I would be more worried if I lived in the neighborhood on Woodland that backs up to the substation than I would the Chiefs being on the other side of the train tracks. But I just thought it was interesting given the conversation that's going on right now in the NFL.
Anybody check the IR for Evergy?
Yeah.
See what they've got going?
Well,
got a few hammies and knees out there, too.
Yes. It's funny you say that because I do run by that substation fairly frequently. The Gary Holler Trail that kind of goes along the train tracks there through Olathe and Lenexa and whatnot. I'm there with regularity, and I have not torn any Achilles yet. I should probably knock on wood as I say that because I'm probably within a quarter mile of that substation with at least once a week when I go for runs or whatever. But it's right there basically due west of the train tracks in Olathe between Ridgeview and Woodland.
Do we know when they put in that substation in Olathe?
So it was there. I don't know when it originally went in, but in 2022, the Olathe City Council basically allowed Evergy to expand it. And there was a lot of blowback at the time from people in that community off of Woodland. But as is oftentimes the case, unfortunately, it just got rammed through because, that's what these city councils do. They don't much care about the residents anymore. They just care about how to make an extra buck to continue to grow their budget. So 2022 is when it got larger in size.
When I was a cross-country athlete at MNU, we'd run that trail sometimes, and I don't remember it being there, but it might have been. I don't know.
I don't know if you can see it from the trail, though.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Because if you're on that Gary Holler Trail, it's pretty well covered in trees and woods, a lot of woods.
You don't have to see it to feel it, Pete.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, John. Thank you. 913-408-7957. That's the text line and the studio line here on a Monday morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Streaming, as always, on the KCMO Talk Radio app. And just a quick note, I know many of you listen on Alexa, and some of you are saying, hey, I'm telling Alexa to play 95.7 FM. And it's not playing your station. It's playing the station down the hallway, the, Madonna and Bon Jovi station. Okay, I tried this out last night because I have my Alexa. You have to tell it to play KCMO AM 710. And then it will pull up this radio station on your Alexa device. The Google will do it, and I have more Googles in the house, so Google is my go-to. Just play KCMO Talk Radio. But for some reason, I got to get it fixed this week. But on the Alexa, you have to be very specific with KCMO AM 710, and boom, up comes the station. So I'll get that fixed, but I had a lot of Alexa people complaining about this in the last week or so. So that's what you have to trigger Alexa to do, KCMO AM 710. Even though, we're still there on the AM dial, but everyone's listening on 95.7 FM, crystal clear on the FM dial. There is one piece of data that the President of the United States continues to need to hammer down, and that point came yesterday right here on this radio station at high noon when we run Meet the Press on NBC. Todd Blanche, Deputy Attorney General, was on Meet the Press, and he made a point that I didn't realize, based on the numbers, until I heard it yesterday from the Deputy Attorney General on Meet the Press. And it's a number that all of America needs to hear and needs to understand. When we talk about what happened in Minneapolis over the weekend, the death of 37-year-old Alex Pretti, in what is, I think, a much worse look for DHS and the administration than the Renee Good shooting is. Renee Good, I mean, unless you are so hyper-partisan, you can't see the forest through the trees. Renee Good is in a vehicle that is moving into a law enforcement officer when she gets shot and killed. Alex Pretti's on the ground with 6 agents on him. And, yeah, the guy's carrying a weapon. Last I checked, this is still America. And there's chaos as he's, yes, resisting arrest, but somebody takes the gun away from him after an agent yells gun, and then Pretti gets shot and killed. Much worse look than Renee Good. That being said, when you try to take the emotion out of it, and I know it's hard to do, regardless of what side you're on, here's the biggest fact that is getting overlooked, that I don't think enough people understand, that puts what's happening in Minneapolis into context.
Very confused about why the conversation is about what you're talking about, instead of focusing on what really matters, which is why in one city, in one place do we have these problems. We deport 10 times the number of illegal aliens out of Texas than we do out of Minneapolis. Why do we hear nothing out of Texas about any of the same problems that we have in Minneapolis? I'll tell you why. Because in Texas, we have the cooperation and support of local law enforcement so that we can do these operations safely, keeping U.S. citizens and others protected and safe. That is not what we have in Minneapolis. And the fact that it's the administration that's being blamed for the utter failure of leadership in Minneapolis is not right, it's not appropriate, and it's also not officers true.
So what you have, and I looked at the numbers just to confirm he was right, and Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, was correct. When you have had over 30,000 people detained by ICE in Texas, and that number in Minnesota is right around 3,000. 3,000 in Minnesota versus 30,000 in Texas. So that leads to the question, is what's going on in Minneapolis worth it? I've seen the suggestion across the board that the president needs to pull out of Minneapolis to bring the temperature down. I don't agree with that. I don't. But what I do think you have to do is be smarter in how you're handling your business in places like Minneapolis. I don't think that you can let anarchists and rioters and governors and mayors and local law enforcement agents who do not want to abide or affiliate or cooperate with federal law win. But I started off the show by saying I would fire Kristi Noem today if I was President Trump. I would put Tom Homan in charge of DHS. And in fact, according to multiple reports, there has been some push and pull between Tom Homan and Kristi Noem as of late. This comes from Fox News, so it's not like this is the New York Times reporting this, okay? Here's the report from Fox News over the weekend. A mass shakeup of ICE leadership is underway amid growing friction inside the Department of Homeland Security over deportation tactics and priorities, according to multiple senior DHS officials. On one side is border agent or border czar Tom Homan, who has advocated for focusing on criminal aliens and those with final deportation orders. On the other side, Kristi Noem and senior advisor Corey Lewandowski, who have pushed for a broader and more aggressive approach, targeting anyone in the U.S. illegally to boost deportation numbers. Two senior officials described the mood inside DHS as tense and combative, with some ICE leaders warning the new approach could erode public support and blur the line between ICE and Border Patrol operations. So Tom Homan, who knows this stuff, I mean, Tom Homan's forgotten more than Kristi Noem ever knew to begin with. All right, and Tom Homan's not exactly a soft on the border kind of guy, okay? If you're going to now tell me, well, Tom Homan's getting soft, then you don't understand, you don't know what you're talking about. There is no one who is better on this topic, more well-versed, and understands it more intently than Tom Homan. And Tom Homan is the one who is saying, we've got 20 million people, whether it's 15 or 20, I don't know. You have somewhere between 10 and 20 million people who came across the border illegally under Joe Biden's 4 years in office, right? And Tom Homan's the one who's saying we've got to hyper-focus on criminal aliens and those with final deportation orders. And you have Kristi Noem, like Kristi Noem is known to do, want to basically do everything for show. See, for Kristi Noem, she wants to play the stat game. Kristi Noem is like the athlete, the basketball player who wants to score 35 points a game and doesn't care if the team wins or loses. That's Kristi Noem. She wants to be able to brag about, what her overall deportation numbers are. But by the way, if you get smoked in the midterms and this is all detrimental to the Republican Party politically, then what's any of it worth? Great, you had a good couple-year run here. Congratulations. What's the end game for you? What's the end game for the party? Does winning matter? This Alex Pretti shooting is going to backfire and has already backfired on the administration. Even though, yes, Pretti was being a knucklehead. He was getting in the way of law enforcement. Yes, he was playing stupid games. And sometimes when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. I get all of that. But this is still a guy who's got 6 federal agents on him. They can't figure out how to arrest him. That didn't look good for those guys. 6-on-1, you can't get the guy arrested. Somebody yells gun. Somebody takes away his gun. And then this guy gets popped. It's a bad look all around for everybody involved. And then Kristi Noem doubling down on this thing over the weekend in the way that she did was a terrible look for the administration. So they've got to hit the reset button on this whole thing, top to bottom in the administration. That's what they have to do. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO. Randy's first up. Good morning, Randy.
Morning. Hey, with regards to all this, I'm going to say something. I'm watching a lot of X stuff. You are never going to look good wrestling a pig in a mud puddle. It doesn't make any difference. Their desire is to create so much chaos. Here's the problem. The people that are not getting blamed, the state of Minnesota and the governor, and that's not a kill Waltz, you know what I'm saying, like kick Waltz when he's down. What I'm saying is when they do not send civil law enforcement out and they create an environment like this is what they want to happen. They've created the environment, and I don't care if it's Noem, I don't care if it's Homan. Nobody is going to give them credit. And their desire for the midterms, in a situation like that, we're dealing with a disease. We're not dealing with a political front. So Pretti and all that kind of stuff, go look at his social media. This guy was a freak. And I say that to say that people who do freaky things are oftentimes more dangerous than people that are living a normal life. Yes, he is a nurse, but he also dresses up like a little fairy.
Okay,
So, weird.
That may be true, but what does that have to do with what happened? What's your point?
Well, what I'm saying is that when you walk in with a state of mind and that is gross to begin with, when you're a person that is a deviant, you do deviant behaviors. When he went across the street, they told him to get on the sidewalk. You got to go back in the film a little bit. He went back out in the street and confronted them. At this point in time, these men are on their own. They have no backup from any civil law enforcement at all. They're probably stressed out of their brains. So you create an environment on a battlefield that is bad. Bad things are going to happen on the battlefield. There is a possibility that was a SIG gun that he had, and I believe the pictures I've seen that gun discharged on its own when that man retrieved it. That discharge created them opening fire. So they said, gun, gun, gun. The man retrieved the gun, and the gun cycled while he was walking away from everything I can understand. If that did happen, it is a terrible accidental situation. But the gun was obviously out in order for that man to retrieve it.
So what you're doing, Randy, and I don't listen. I respect your point of view here, but you're getting into the weeds and you're explaining. And in politics, when you're explaining, you're losing. You're losing.
I understand that.
This is not. I think you would agree, though, Randy. This is not as black and white as Renee Good.
No, it is not. But what I do know is this: is to gain understanding, you have to have information. The information that is coming across. You have to basically recreate an accident. Mm-hmm. And the recreation we don't have any of yet. And so everybody's searching for a reason for it to happen when we don't even have the information as to what happened. And so all I'm saying is the 2A community right now is losing their minds because, which I'm a big part of, that literally that this guy had the right to carry a gun. Well, yes, he did have a right to carry a gun. But the minute you approach federal law enforcement and resist, you're committing a felony at that moment.
Yeah, no, I understand that, Randy, and that's a good call. And I brought that up as well, and I have brought it up throughout the morning. You're right about that. You're right. But something tells me if we had all the roles reversed here and a guy carrying his gun legally in America ends up getting shot and killed in the way that this guy was, the conversation with some people would be very different this morning on the right side of the political aisle. And that's why for the administration pumping the brakes, pulling back, and I don't mean pulling back law enforcement, but just pulling back, resetting, and figuring out how to attack the situation when it comes to illegal immigration in the most targeted, effective, safe way possible. That wins for the citizens and wins politically is what has to be done right now. 913-408-7957. You'll hear the O'Reilly Morning Update. We'll get to your calls. And I do have a health update on O'Reilly. There was some scare last week that he may be dealing with something serious. Well, we'll tell you what happened, what we know, coming up next. So Bill O'Reilly was supposed to be on the show on Friday morning, and I got a call last week saying that he was going to have to cancel. I should say postpone his interview. He's going to be on the show coming up this Friday at 8 o'clock. But you may have seen some reporting on social media and the news last week that, prayers up for Bill, and he was dealing with a health issue and a medical situation, and, we hope that Bill's going to be okay. Well, it turns out, and Bill confirmed this over the weekend, but it turns out that what he was dealing with was a hereditary condition involving internal bleeding that put him in the hospital for 4 days. So that's what it was tied to. It was basically a short medical work pause that he took, and O'Reilly noted over the weekend he did not expect the enormous outpouring of concern that he got last week. But he's expected to be back on his show tonight, which, of course, airs at 8 p.m. here on KCMO Talk Radio. And, we need his voice right now, arguably more than ever. And he's going to be back on the air tonight. His show is going to be here at 8 p.m. after Mark Levin, before Will Kane on 95.7 FM. And then he'll be back, of course, on this show coming up Friday morning at 8. But it was, as he described it himself, his own words, a hereditary situation that resulted in internal bleeding that put him in the hospital for a few days. But he's home, and he's going to be back at it tonight. Back to you, 913-408-7957. Alfonso is in Blue Springs. Alfonso, good morning. You're on KCMO Talk Radio. What is your take on what happened over the weekend and what the administration can do better?
I think they're failing from being a proactive standpoint. We all know that they're paid agitators. Like, I watched a video over the weekend where literally people blocked a tactical vehicle coming down the street, and nobody got arrested with felonies. They need to maybe create just like a task force of ICE agents that just go proactively arrest people for being in the street. And felonies are felonies, and people can't afford to get felonies. They're acting willy-nilly because there's no consequences, and that's the issue. When you listen to the Minnesota governor, everybody's peaceful. But you start making 2,000 arrests for felonies, that will change the narrative.
Well, the problem is you have local officials and local authorities who are not interested in helping the federal folks. So that's part of the reason that you've got the chaos in Minneapolis that is not occurring in other major American cities, to your point.
Yeah. That's the only shot we got, because at this point, midterms are going to be just like 2020 because of peaceful protests.
You mean 2018 midterms, or you mean the 2020 election due to the protests?
The George Floyd
protest
really was won the election, and that's where we're headed.
Yes, that's why. Thank you, Alfonso. That's why, if your attitude is to just bury your head in the sand and say, nope, it's time to double down, well, you're going to get what's coming, because here's the thing. The polling shows most people, overwhelmingly support what the president did when it came to shutting down the border. A lot of people support him. The majority, according to polls, support the president when it comes to arresting illegal aliens who have committed crimes in addition to, the border crimes in this country. But if you're now getting the optics of an American citizen getting disarmed and then shot and killed by Border Patrol, you're losing the narrative. And you might say, yeah, but, I mean, this, that, the next thing. I agree with you. But if there's massive political blowback that comes from it, and this is the 2020 playbook by and large all over again, then what's it worth? 2020 brought us Biden, Democrat House, and Democrat Senate. Okay? Was it worth it that they misplayed their hand in 2020? No, it was not. So learn from that and develop a coherent, smart, strategic plan on what you're going to do on this issue to make sure you're winning out. And that's why I would put Tom Homan in charge, not, Barbie Kristi Noem, who is way in over her head.